for $0, but you still need a fitting usually. So, debatable. Two fuel fitting lines the fuel lines were in the car. I just bought fittings to adapt the fuel lines that came with the car. So those were $20. The TH400 dipstick, I said, hilariously cheap on eBay and unbelievably 100% calibrated. Usually doesn't happen. That was our good luck. The China adjustable regulator, I have been pushing. I keep buying cheaper ones, and as long as you are not dumb and you can check it out and investigate it and make sure it's okay, they work great. It actually works 1-to-1. Everything is good. The only thing that I did is didn't tighten it all the way first time we ran fuel through it and sprayed it everywhere. And Dario said he has had the same thing happen. So it's just funny. It's like a PQY, but extremely cheap. That was one of the items that I thought I would never see because I bought it from China to get it half the price that people in the US were selling it for, but I waited like 55 days for it or something absurd. I thought I was just going to have to buy another one because it never arrived, but it came in nick of time. These faster performance NNBS fuel rails with fittings and hose, these are incredible. This is another thing, guys. The stock fuel rails will get you really far, way into the 800 horsepower range. We didn't make anywhere near that. We made pretty close to it. Sorry, that's not a good statement. But the stock rails, this is almost $200 off. You don't need the regulator if you're running the stock rails with the regulator attached to it. There's a lot of ways to be resourceful here. There's another $200 off. War Performance throttle body, extremely nice piece. Makes it easier to make full power on lower boost. All of the above. $140, you don't technically need it. It does look nice. It does help later on, but for the power we were making, I wouldn't have the time in a month to show you all the builds I've done with a completely stock 3-bolt throttle body, Gen 3 plastic intake, stock fuel rails, making 900 plus rear wheel thrown automatic, even on E85. So again, I used it, yeah, but you can knock that off the budget too. So if we want to be extreme here, we could make 3 different budgets here, but again, I got a used Mustang radiator from somebody that was extremely filthy and filled with rust and mud. And I thought it would be nice to fit it. And it's one of those things I wish I had changed. It ended up being more of a pain in the ass. Always dumping the rust out of the car. Eventually now it's pretty clean. There's still like a brown tinge to the water. Even after all these times we dumped it, the motors are 100% clean. And then you dump the coolant out of this rad and it's just disgusting. So I'm sure a lot of you can identify with sometimes a rad just is garbage. Like it just gets filled with trash and, price reflected it and everything else. So that's that. So I got a used cut drive shaft from a friend and we just welded the piece together. It was longer. It was out of his truck. So we used what we had and put it together. People do this all the time. You guys might be surprised. A lot of times I like to get a professionally built drive shaft. It only costs $350. You'll never have a problem with it unless the people don't build good drive shafts. But so we're going to press on twin VS 44 millimeter wastegates. They were blemishes. I think they're usually 105 a piece. He sold them to me for like 75 a piece because they were blems, missing bolts, scratched, all the other stuff. So got those. He does offer that to the public also. Yes, it's not just a me deal. I got the Holley pan, which I thought was an incredible deal. Obviously here I have cut my own truck pans many times, guys. But what I was talking about, again, with future proofing was if you're buying a muscle car pan, it's only like an inch shorter. It doesn't really give you that much room. And then this has integrated turbo drains. There's no welding there. You can put if you move the turbo, if you do twins, it has twin drains built in. It is extremely tight to the motor. You actually have to cut the windage tray to fit this pan. It's set up to be used for drag racing. It has a nice baffle system in it. All of the above, and then, like I said, future-proofing, watching out for the oil pressure on the motor, making the turbo drains easy, not having to cut the pan and worrying about pickup height and everything else, drop in the bucket. So It's 250 bucks for an option for you anyway, unless you just cut the stock pan. But then you're relying on, it's very hard to weld that aluminum. I feel like they always seep. It's not that bad, but here again, I spent more than I should have for a nice piece. Blah, blah, blah. So Snake Eaters, 1500s, incredible injector for the money. I bought them for $320 for the build. I don't know what they cost now. That's what I bought them for. I think they're still the same price. Monkey Fab hot side stuff. You guys look at that stuff and you think it's expensive, but it is incredibly well priced. It's pre-built. We knocked out the hot side and they built that hot side in no time. All of the difficult stuff Mike had already done with the collector, and it had the frame mount on it. The Y pipes for the wastegates with the wastegate seat already welded to it. I think that was one of the reasons why my gates were cheaper. It didn't have the seats. Like I said to Varen, my things, the Monkey Fab piece already has the wastegate seat on it, so I can take those from you that are missing pieces. Blah, blah, blah. So, oil and filter from AutoZone. A lot of people don't include this. I think it's important. Put the oil and filter on the car. It definitely needs fresh oil and a filter. Front wheels with 28-inch tires already on it. They were only $100 a piece, so I got those, and they were great. They're already on the car. Everything else was fine. The right size rear weld, that was difficult to find, and I almost bought another set of wheels, and then I eventually found this is a very popular size. It's very specific, but it's very popular because a lot of Fox body guys use it. So these were blemish wheels. I got those for $100 for each wheel. They are the Jegs. They're not a weld. They don't use the shank. None of that expensive stuff. The wheel isn't expensive. They're the Jegs knockoff weld, correctly backspaced. They use an acorn, which is also what I wanted. I hate those shanks. I wanted acorn, Jegs knockoff, whatever. So that's what they are. I wrote weld there, but they're not welds. They're much cheaper than that. Also, the dented intercooler. People laugh about this. I purposely like when stuff is like this. He had a huge dent in a 4-inch intercooler. No one wants to buy that stuff. He knows I love that stuff. A lot of times when Varen does send me something, I purposely ask for a blemish. He knows I like blemished items. He knows I like rubbing it in people's face when I use partially broken or damaged things. So that's what I got. I got a 4-inch intercooler with a huge dent in it. Intercooler and piping from VS. And then the aluminum downpipe and flange is one of Mark's friends that does stuff, and he sells that. I don't know if that guy necessarily wants 300 of you calling him for those parts, but you can find people with these things. That was a huge future-proof item there. I would have much rather welded just some steel junk on there, but that was the whole future-proof, beautiful turbo kit, possible upgrade thing going on there. The Jegs race seat, $130. Jegs brand new 5-point harness. We took safety into account. A lot of people were like, build the car without safety. Safety, a lot of motorsports don't count safety items, but I thought it was important. And then I had said in many of the videos that I know I won't be able to make the car 100% safe because that means NHRA license. A chute is an extremely expensive item. It's one of the most expensive items, but it will save you if there's a problem. So we don't have a chute on here, like I said, but we definitely wanted to. The car came with a cage, which I'll go over then what the car came with. We wanted to be safe. Mark and I have a lot to lose, so brand new belts, seat, so people at the track would take us seriously, even though they know it's not 100% safe. But Mark has a license, and they'll let you, if you have 95% of it, there's not much they can say. But if you have no cage, just the plastic seats that came with this car were garbage. It had way out of date belts, which in my opinion, how do belts go bad unless they're like falling apart from the bottom of a lake? But we could go on with that stuff forever, but it does have most of the safety equipment brand new, in date. I bought arcade buttons to actuate the trans brake, and those were extremely cheap. And then in with miscellaneous stuff is like the $6 solid state relay I also used. We got used Mickey Thompson 275s. People are getting rid of these tires all the time cheap. You don't have to buy new ones. You can see how they fit. A lot of times people have a serious car that it only gets a bunch of passes out of these and then they take them off. They lose their grip. But if you don't have 1,500 horsepower, you're fine. Obviously, this car is sticking incredible with these used Mickey Pros. They were only $200 for both tires. So I got a junkyard battery from Collis Truck Parts. They sell good batteries just like they sell recycled coolant and everything else. So I didn't use any coolant in this car. I just used tap water. So the water was technically free, you know. A lot of times I don't use coolant in these cars also, just in case there's an issue. I don't want to spray coolant all over the place. Water will evaporate very easily. Dirty Dingo alternator relocation bracket. I love that stuff. I could have done a lot of stuff with the belt and everything else, but that is a permanent solution that I never have to worry about, and that's why I did it. I could have done a lot of things myself, drilling holes, relocating things. Hoping it would stay on is another thing. I would say sometimes we don't even use that and the car doesn't throw the belt. 3/4 of the time that thing's going to toss the belt, especially burnout box pedaling or high RPM shifts, or as soon as you lift, it gets that slack from the crank, comes right off the alternator. And that's just not something you want to worry about, is not spinning your water pump and your alternator, and $28 is well worth it to just cover that. And then I put in a thing here for miscellaneous clamps, hoses, connectors, crimps, junkyard fuses. You know, I put $172 in there. That easily covers that stuff. You can't give me too much crap about that. And then the sloppy tax is 88 cents. So the reason, obviously, the car cost I have is $8,888.88 is in between the miscellaneous and the sloppy tax. That is my trying to be funny. Hopefully you guys laugh. So, well, quick overview. The car itself, the 95 Mustang Roller. So this car, all right, so second half here, I realized it wasn't scrolled all the way up. So the car was $1,900, TH400, $1,200 with the brake. And then the engine is $200 because nobody wants a 4.8 at all, ever. So they don't cost anything up here. And if they cost more than that in your area, try to skimp on some of these other things, obviously. So that's the adjustable budget part. I wanted to stop and scroll back up and show that, you know, that stuff is included. So we'll go over the car. So for $1,900 off the marketplace, this car, there's a reason why we got this car. It's not pretty. 100% of it wasn't there, everything else, but the economical piece was perfect to do this. So we saw it and we were like, man, this will be the easiest thing in the world to use this car. We can even frivolously spend on a lot of things, and you know, I have to keep mentioning that. So 95 Mustang Roller. It came with the 850 cage, not welded in. It came with all the pieces though, so we welded it in. It would have cost more if it had the cage welded in. Maybe, maybe not. You know, who knows? So it had a built 8.8 already in it. Stock rear end with 28 spline hardened axles. I don't know which axles are in it. I think there is a sticker on them. I haven't totally checked. Mark did the gears. He checked that they were actually 28s. We are assuming that they are hardened in aftermarket because they absolutely would have shattered if not. So it already has inboard coilovers. It already has the shocks. It already has everything welded onto it. I believe it has 9-inch ends. I'd have to go look. I'm not totally sure. Didn't want to write it down, but it has so much done. So it has battle box, torque box reinforcements already done to the inside and the outside for the lower control arms and the uppers. It has south side adjustable relocation arms that were not even welded in. Most of the bolts in the car were not tight, so someone had just done, you know, put these parts on and let this car sit. So adjustable upper control arms with Heim joints, solid mounted, no bushings on anything, just all solid mounts. It had a bumper with the battery terminal, jumpers on it, shut-off switch already on it, all of that stuff. It had a welded anti-roll bar. It still is in there. Everything was there. It has adjustable links on the welded anti-roll bar. It came with race seats that were plastic garbage, and it did come with harnesses, partial interior. It came with battery wiring and a battery box and the connectors and everything already in the car and run. It had fuel lines already in the car, excessive amount of length of fuel lines coiled up on both ends. Had a fuel cell in the car. The car came with, I think it's a UPR K member, 2 bay arms, and it has QA1 single adjustable shocks. I can just tell that by looking at, it says QA1 on them. So It has caster camber plates already on the car. It has a Flaming River manual steering rack, brand new on the car. It has an aftermarket collapsible column with a detachable steering wheel. It has a bump steer kit already on there. I don't have it written there, but I do know it has a bump steer kit attached to the steering also. I used the stock throttle cable and gas and brake pedals in the car. They were already there. It has a full manual brake conversion. It was already done. All the brakes came on the car. All of that was there. I said harnesses already. There might be some things I'm forgetting, like I added in the bump steer kit. There was just incredible amount of suspension parts thrown at the car, which made it the right choice, just as long as you don't buy something that's too much of a basket case. So we just recognized all the good parts and knew that if we just slammed it with a bunch of power, it would do everything with it. So we'll go on to we made 5 passes with the car in just one day. I don't know if a lot of you guys have experience with running 8s with a car, but it's not always the easiest thing. The biggest thing is not making the power, it's doing something with the power. So getting at the hook, using the power at the right time. Obviously with that much power, you can't always use it all at once. The car has to be set up for it. You have to be a part of that setup. You have to drive the car, tune the car, make the car work. So a nice part of that is with power management, the Holley ECU has all the trans brake and bump and everything built in there. It has boost control built in. It has rolling timing retard off of launch. It has lots of ways to adjust the power. But to go out for the first day, never make a quarter pass, get good results out of the car speaks a lot for setting it up correctly. So Mark did a great job. He did most of the setup on that. I'm not a big suspension guy, but we just used components that were already on the car, did a alignment with tape measures and whatnot. Car drives extremely straight. You barely have to touch the steering wheel. If you can't tell by the 130-foot wheelie that went completely straight, it's very well sorted. Everything works great. So 5th pass was an 885 153 monster wheelie. Something that you guys have to understand is a wheelie, if you don't know this, a wheelie like that is a ton of wasted energy up and out. If it had something like, I got suspension limiters, you make them out of chains at Home Depot for $20. So it would stop the front end from rising as much as it did. It would help the car go forward instead of up, wasting all that energy. Like I said, the car probably had an 860 in it that day with pretty much the same power without wasting all of it on the wheelie. Other people don't think that's possible. Also, people think the 880 is the best it could do. Anybody that understands all of these things knows that that was the first day, no limiters, blah, blah, blah. So there's a ton of, not a ton, I hate when people are like, so much more left in it. But there's room to grow even from that pass. So just wanted to say that. A bunch of you already know that. People need to hear that though. So it can go faster, as is. The car is running fine when we were done. We drove it on the trailer. We started it, drove it into my house. Everything else is good. So that's pretty much it. That's the whole thing. I hope everybody got all the resource they wanted out of this, and now they can see the budget and everything else. And if you have questions, let me know. I think I covered everything I could. I don't know if there's much else to cover here. And that's it.